Today, we're here to talk about the power of recruitment and really the business case around it, and how, as a real estate brokerage, if you know the numbers, you can really use them to your advantage to really scale up your brokerage. So with that, just want to start out with kind of presenters on here today. So my name is Jim Turner. If we haven't talked before, I'm CEO and co-founder here at Brokerkit. So we here at Brokerkit, if you're not familiar with what we do, I know we have some customers, some people that aren't customers. We help residential real estate brokerages ramp up the growth by improving their agent recruiting and retention. We put a technology platform out there around that. So Paul, I'll hand it over to you to give your introduction also.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Rich. I'm a broker owner. Prior to becoming a broker owner, I was a managing broker and was responsible for the recruiting in that office and was doing everything manually. I've since come across Brokerkit, and I'm now a customer, and I'm also on their advisory board, helping to create content for things that I would use manually with this great system for Brokerkit. So welcome, everybody.
Okay, awesome. So that's us. Let's kind of dive into the meat of this. So when you look at kind of brokerages, but really any business, there's two primary funnels out there: the sales funnel and the talent funnel. And both are really important. So a lot of the people that are out in the real estate space came up as an agent when they became a broker owner, managing broker, which means they really started out on the sales side, and it's kind of second nature for them, right? And obviously, selling homes is a key part of the business, and a focus on that funnel. But we believe, and our focus here at Brokerkit, is the talent funnel is equally, if not more important, because that's what's going to help you scale your business. Every buyer or seller that you bring on, on the sales side, as a broker, if you're spending time there, you're bringing in, revenue to your business in terms of company dollar off of that, but you're not bringing scale. So, each buyer or seller that you bring on, as you process a transaction, you'll maybe, sell another home to that person every 1 to 7 years. But if you're bringing in agents who produce, what you're bringing in is essentially recurring and residual income for the business and for yourself as that broker owner or managing broker. So we believe it's underappreciated, considering that talent side as the funnel. So since most people came up through the sales side, there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of methodologies of focus around funnels, building them. What should the numbers be on the sales side? Less so on the talent side. We believe to really scale your business as a brokerage, you need to have that same kind of mindset around it is a funnel. We need to treat it like a funnel. We need to have kind of stages. We need to have metrics. We need to have systems around it. So with that, let's get into it. Let's start with the sales funnel. I'll turn it over to Paul to kind of talk through sales funnel, talent funnel. What are some of the key metrics to look at and what matters?
All right, thanks, Jim. So we're going to start with the sales funnel just because that's what we're usually more familiar with when it comes to scaling a business in terms of our personal production. And we'll contrast that in just a moment to the talent funnel. So the sales pipeline is the short to medium term health of the brokerage. And the reason for that is because it's very market dependent. Even the best agents might be limited because of poor market conditions. So we look at that in terms of quarterly metrics. The other thing about the sales funnel is that ad and other marketing that's related to your spending and your investment can boost the top and the bottom of the funnel. It can be dynamically adjusted to meet the current needs of your brokerage, and it is heavily affected by agent churn or losing attrition of agents. The metrics that we use, first of all, it does affect our company dollar with the following metrics. So first of all, the average agent commission in your marketplace, the average sales price in your marketplace, the average number of transactions per agent, the gross commission income, your split, and then what are you investing in your sales funnel. So the administrative spend, your tech stack, and the marketing spend is all part of the metrics that we need to use to determine our return on investment.
And at the end of the day, when we get into the calculator, what matters is company dollar, right? And all the other things below it are really leading indicators to help kind of manage what that's going to be.
So we're going to contrast that with the talent funnel, which is more of the medium to long-term health of any brokerage. So it is not market dependent. And the reason for that is because agents always have a reason to switch. My saying is that agents are always happy with where they are until they're not. And so, in other words, there's there's something that triggers a change within an agent. Sometimes it's the market condition, but there's many other factors that are involved in them making a change. It's also much harder to boost your funnel through ad spending. It's very much more a relationship, brand, and reputation-based funnel. And it does require long-term planning. If you think about maybe the Eisenhower matrix, it's that quadrant 2. It's something that we need to invest in our time to look at our long-term health of our business, investing in our business. And it needs to be adjusted based on the current and the future needs of our brokerage. Now, it does counter that agent churn or that attrition, but obviously that has to outpace the overall turnover as well as the training time for those agents that you're bringing in.
We talked about the talent funnel exists in all businesses, just like the sales funnel. It's important in all, but it's and equally, and if not more important in brokerages, but it's really different in brokerages. And I want to kind of call that out. So if you look at kind of like other businesses, like corporate type businesses, the hiring is very different when you're hiring W-2 employees, right? The typical process is you have a hiring manager who works with HR, writes up a job description, posts it out to a job board. That person applies, you get like 300, 500 applicants. Somebody tries to weed through them, find some who's best, have the hiring manager, the recruiter screens them, hiring manager talks to them, they select someone. Real estate, totally different, right? Especially when you get into hiring experienced agents that are producing, it's more of a B2B sales process, right? The existing ways that you recruit in other industries for W-2 employees, not relevant at all. It's more like what a corporation would do on their B2B sales process, right? Because it is a B2B sales essentially, because the agents have their own business, right? New agents will potentially come through, an Indeed ad or something like that, but any producing agents you wouldn't find them that way, right? So the talent funnel is fundamentally different, and you need to kind of think of it as B2B sales, as if one of those corporations, how they would handle B2B sales.
All right, so in terms of the metrics, it's again about that company dollar, but we look at slightly different things. There are some things that are related, of course, because obviously their production, the GCI, all those that we talked about in the sales funnel are the same, but what does it do to affect the company dollar? So one of the metrics that we have to look at is our agent attrition. Are we able to retain the agents that we are bringing on board? What is our average agent tenure within our brokerage? Do they tend to stay once they get there, or are you seeing a pattern of maybe a 1 to 2 year cycle where you're seeing almost a brand new office in terms of the faces and the talent? Also, it's affected by the agent hiring. If it's an afterthought in your business, then obviously you're going to have a much less predictable funnel of talent that comes in. If you're not putting the time in every day, every week, every month, and every quarter into what am I doing to make sure I'm bringing in new talent. Then some of the metrics that we talked about before do play into this as well. The average transaction per agent, that will be affected by the type of agent that you're bringing into your brokerage. So if you're bringing in experienced agents with a good sales history, that's going to affect your average transaction count per agent in your office. So we also need to then, as I mentioned before, hit and look at what are our monthly hiring targets. What is it going to take to acquire that many agents per month? We have to hit it, make a target. You can't hit a target if you don't know where the target is, right? And then, of course, some of the other metrics, the investment that you make in terms of the recruiting costs itself, and then what are your onboarding, training, and coaching costs per agent, and check again your return on investment for those efforts. So when it comes to retention and churn or attrition in your brokerage, those costs are pretty high. So we know that there's the hard costs, which is the administrative work, the recruiting, the background checks, and any of those types of hard costs that come into play. But that's as Jim likes to talk about, that's sort of like the tip of the iceberg, right? Those are just some of the costs that you see when it comes to what those are. Some of the soft costs are, of course, your productivity, your interview time, the lost knowledge base, all of the other metrics that affect the medium and long-term health of your brokerage are affected by losing those agents. So retention is another key component, obviously, to that talent funnel, hiring and retaining those agents. So with that being said, Jim, I'll give you some time to take over from here.
Okay, great. So see. So we kind of talked about the two broker funnels and now the talent funnel. Now we're going to kind of talk into how to do revenue modeling and how to build a business case around how to do this. As I think you'll see soon, there's a very high ROI to focus on. If you kind of play your cards right, you make the right investments, you have the right people process tools, there can be a very high ROI to recruiting. Just wanted to go through that. Now Paul just talked about some of the key metrics on your talent funnel you want to look at. So we're going to go into kind of some real world examples. So I've got a calculator that I'm going to go through, but I want to start with a poll first. So I'm going to launch a poll. Now there's 4 questions I'm going to poll all the participants on, which are really inputs into the model. So I'm going to go ahead and launch. Now, the thing is, what I want to ask you to do is don't fill it out based on kind of, we all know that real estate's is a very cyclical business and a little bit of a roller coaster up and down. Things are a little kind of down. 2021, they were insane, right? Totally different markets. What you need to be thinking about is average conditions, right? Because we're not going to be in this market forever. 2021 is never going to last forever, right? So think of the average, right? So let's start out with the key numbers that matter as an input into your business case. Number one, average number of transactions per agent. If everybody kind of fill that out, that's question 1. For what you're seeing out there kind of on average. And I think the national average is 8, by the way, but curious to see where everybody kind of lands on what they're seeing. The next one is, what's your average attrition in terms of percentages? So that's, if you have 100 agents, you lose 20 a year, your annual attrition is 20%. The next one is just how many hours does it take on average to recruit an agent? Whether it be you as the broker owner, you have a recruiter working for you, or you have a managing broker leading an office. How many hours do they need to spend on average a day? And the way to think about that is, okay, I'm a recruiter. If a full-time person has about 160 hours a month, 40 hours a week for 4 weeks. How many people can they hire in a month? If it's 8, that's 20 hours a month. And then if you look at kind of like a managing broker, if they're spending X hours a week, how many should you expect them to be? That's how you got to look at it, right? Because it kind of depends on how much time it's going to it. And if it's a broker owner, right, it's how much time you're dedicating, right? So it's input output. And then number 4, what is your average brokerage split? Now this assumes you're on a split model versus a transaction fee based model. I realize some people are out there probably on the transaction fee side, but let's just assume on the transaction fee what it would essentially kind of come out to. And again, it's probably not perfect on any of these, but go ahead and choose whatever the closest is. Okay, so we're going to give it. We're seeing some good responses in there. We're at about 28% participation rate. It's kind of still climbing, so I'll give it a couple more minutes. And seeing some good. So the way it's shaping up right now is average number of transactions. We're seeing, I think the national average when you have the stats is 8, but we're seeing kind of 6. But if you kind of look at them, it's somewhere between 6 and 8. Average annual attrition, we're seeing it kind of cluster between 10, 15. Let's see, it's somewhere in that range, 10 to 15 on average for people. And then how many hours to recruit an agent? I'm seeing somewhere between 10 and 20. And then average brokerage split, it looks like the cluster is probably around 20% here. So let's see, we're at kind of about 20 responses here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, I'll just leave it running and I'll leave it on the other screen so y'all can go ahead and do it. And I'll just look real time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into this calculator. Now we're going to give you a copy of this to download at the end, but this is going to help you forecast. Let's see, and this will be all recorded, put on YouTube. We're going to link to the model too. But this is going to help you forecast out the business case for what, based on my numbers, right? We're going to go through the averages here, but you can download it, change it to your own. And this is going to give you kind of that model to model the business case around recruiting. So I'm going to just start out with hypothetical broker. I'm going to walk you through this model now. So I'm going to say, this is, could be a managing broker of an office, could be a broker owner, right? You could look at it, the whole brokerage or just a region or an office, could be a team too, right? So that'd probably be kind of on the bigger side for teams, but let's just assume it's any of the above. I'm going to say broker owner for simplicity. So 100 agents, average commission side of 2.5%, right? Which assumes kind of 5% overall. One side's 2.5. Average sales price of 350,000, maybe different in your market. People on the West Coast, it's probably higher. People in, central part of the US, it's probably lower. We're going to go with 350. Okay, so the next one is one of our inputs from the poll. So what's the average number of transactions per agent? So if I look at this, it's clustered between probably 6 and 8. So I'm going to just say 7 just to be safe here. But I think if you look at kind of numbers through time is 7. So what that means is your average agents, assuming these numbers are right, the GCI would be 61K per agent, and as a business, your brokerage GCI would be 6 million. And let's look at split. So if we go look at split, that was one of our poll items. So 20% was kind of the high bar. So we're going to leave 20% in there. So that means company dollar per agent in this hypothetical business. Again, you can download this and tailor it for your business. It's around $12,000 an agent, right? And your projected revenue for that business, top line, would be 1.2 million. Okay. Somebody asked a question. We are a flat fee brokerage. I do want to call out when for the purposes of this model, I'm going to go through the brokerage split model. There is another tab for the flat fee model. You can download it and switch it for your model too. If you're a commission only shop, and the numbers kind of work, it's essentially going to work the same. So for the purposes of this, I'm just going to go through the split model. Okay, so now you're as a broker owner, you're not content with kind of staying the same, right? So you want to grow 30%, and again, this is this is going to be dependent, right? As a broker owner, what do you want to get out of your business? It needs to align with your kind of personal financial goals and balanced out with the rest of your life. But let's just say hypothetical broker owner wants to grow 30%. Okay, so now the next big question is, what is your average annual attrition of your agent? So that was another of our poll items. So if we go to the poll here, let's see, it was clustered between 10 and 20%. Okay, so I'm going to say 15%. It looks like, I'm going to say 15%. Okay, which 15% means the average agent stays 6 years on average. Okay, so because if you take 100 divided by 15, it's 6 basically. If your average agent's 25% for your rate, 20%, it's 5 years on average, right? And you're gonna have agents that last longer or shorter, but that's how it should average out. So let's just say, based on the poll, 15% annual attrition, which means your average agent staying 6 years. Okay, so then that means it's kind of a calculation. How many agents are you losing per month then? Out of the 100, if I'm losing 15%, that means I'm losing 15 per year, which is roughly 1 a month. Okay, so this would be my new GCI if I grow 30%, because I'm lifting my current GCI up here by 30%. My new agent count to hit that, based on my average production, is 130. That means to hit this number, I need to go from 100 agents to 130. But, right, here's the clincher. So I just lost 15 agents, right? So I need to grow the 30, I need to replace the 15, then add the 30, which is a total of 45, which is 4 per month. Okay, so that's really what you need to focus on. I'm gonna grow 4 per month, and we're just focusing on recruiting now. But right, like there's other numbers in here that have a huge impact in this model, right? So if you can reduce that to say 10%, your life just got a lot easier, right? Or some of the other numbers, right? If you can modify, if you can focus on luxury, get the average sales price up, if you can coach them, right, to have higher production per agent, right? Like that can have a huge impact. And when you have the model, think of it as like a sensitivity analysis. Just play with these numbers and say, like, what if I could do some of those things? What would be the impact? It helps you figure out where to focus the most time. But I can tell you, having played with this model, when you play with it, the biggest thing that impacts this is this number right here, okay? And you're going to find that, because the easiest way to grow your brokerage is, assuming these numbers are right, is focus on the recruiting side. So then if we're hiring 4 a month, that means we would be bringing in another 367 and company dollar per year from those additional agents, assuming the average years. Okay, and let's say they would stay on average that period of time. So then this would be the additional company dollar you're bringing on, not just year one, right? This is what you're bringing in year one. This is across the lifetime of the agent. Okay, and I think it got rounded up to 7 from 6 off of this, because I think it's it's not an even 6. So let's just say, but over the lifetime of the agent. So you have to think of each group of agents, right? Right? You want them to pay for themselves ideally in year 1, but they're not just staying 1 year, they're staying in the out years. So you have to look at the lifetime value of the company dollar that they're bringing in, right? So if I'm really adding those 30 agents, I'm bringing in that additional revenue per year, but I'm bringing over their lifetime that year, and it compounds, right? Because if you're doing this each year, there are essentially cohorts that keep adding on top of each other, okay? So then that's the revenue side. As with any business case, what matters is what is the upside, the revenue, but then what's it going to cost me, right? So let's just talk about how to do that. So we're just going to go through some hypothetical expenses. So I'm going to say CRM, like I've put in kind of our pricing here at Brokerkit, if using our platform for this at our lowest tier foundation, which is really meant for brokerages, probably around that 100 agent size. So that's basically, comes out to be about $299 a month. So that's where you'd be per year. You're going to need some leads to follow up with, depends on if you're looking new or experienced agents. An example would be leveraging, our Realytics integration for MLS production data, pulling those in to go after experienced agents. Where that's really going to impact you is if you're focused on new versus experienced agents, you want to play with this, right? And tenure. It's going to impact both depending on, right? Because if you're going after experienced agents, probably harder to recruit, more hours to recruit them. But higher production and maybe longer tenure, right? So you can kind of figure out what's going to work best for you. So let's assume you need a system to manage it. You need some leads. Let's throw in some administrative costs. So just assume some postage for some direct mail, anything like that. And then now we're going to go to the next input, which is time. Okay. And you're going to find how much time goes into it is the biggest factor that determines everything. Right? Because we talked about this number is going to have the biggest impact on your brokerage. Well, the biggest input into that is time, right? When you look at this, it's not going to be kind of the systems, it's how much time is dedicated into the business, right? And that could be as a broker owner, you personally are a managing broker, or it could be you hire someone as a recruiter because you run the numbers. And that's the point of this is I could be better off because as a broker owner, for me to grow where I want to do, maybe I can't spend enough time to have that impact that I want. And I need to project out if I'm going to bring on a recruiter to do this or a set of recruiters, how I'm going to make it pay for itself. Okay. That's the whole purpose of this, right? So let's just assume 20 hours for the average recruit. Let's go to our poll. So we did poll for that. So if I look at the poll, it clustered between 10 and 20 hours. So let's just say 15. Okay. So that means it's going to take on average 15 hours to recruit an incremental agent in your business. And let's just take, okay, what's it going to cost per hour? Now, if the broker owner is doing it, you should consider, this is another factor, right? If you're a business owner, you need to be focused on things that, if you're running $1 million business, you need to consider your hourly rate as, $500 an hour, right? You need to be focused on $500 an hour tasks. So this is an area where it's probably going to make sense to bring in a recruiter to kind of help you. Now, what if you're hiring someone to do this, it's probably going to be in that $30 an hour range. That comes out to $60 a year. Okay. You can hire someone probably to do this role. Now it could be part-time, could be full-time. But let's say, what is that going to cost me? Okay. So this right now is assuming, okay, if I want to hire 4 agents a month and it's going to cost 15, it's going to take them 15 hours an agent and I'm paying $30 an hour. What is it going to cost me per year? So that's like 20 grand. Okay. So 20 grand. So that's going to come, if you divide that by 12 months, so that's going to be less than 2 grand. So that's going to be like somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 a month. Right. So there are some incremental expenses. It's going to cost you to do this 27,000, right? Which is roughly a little over 2,000 a month to do all these things. Okay. But the key is you need to view it as an investment versus a cost, because this is the key growth leverage in your business, right? And that's the whole point of this model. It lets you kind of model this out. So what that means is, okay, how much is it costing me per agent? Well, it's going to come out with those numbers. On average, it's going to cost you $600 per agent. This is a pretty efficient run market or run business if it's costing them $600 to recruit. If you're just getting started, it may be closer to $1,000, right? And you got to kind of play with your numbers, right? It's a little bit of a scale thing. And do you have the people, process, and tools in place? But like putting those in place, you should be able to get to this. So then the question is, okay, what am I getting for that, right? We talked about the revenue, we talked about the cost. What is the business case around this? Okay. And that's where we want to look at this. So if you look at this, I'm bringing in that revenue per year by spending this. So I'm going to spend 27 to get 367 a year. But if you look at it across the lifetime of the agents, right, because they're not just staying a year, you're bringing in 27 to bring in 2.4 million. And that's the way you really got to look at it. Okay. And then if you look at what is the ROI, it's really like, what is this divided by that, right? And you can look at it by year or over the lifetime, right? But the key is these numbers are big, right? Like the real question you have to ask yourself, especially as a broker and, you know, or leadership in a large brokerage, right, who has, you know, budgetary authority to decide where resources are allocated. The real question you need to ask yourself is, what else could I do that would have that kind of return, right? And as a business owner, just think of like, right, I've got money in my piggy bank, right? And it could be, you know, I could invest it in the business, or I could put it in, say, S&P 500. Money market funds are paying 5% right now, which is great compared to a year ago, right? Interest rates going up has been rough on, you know, kind of the real estate side, but it's been great for if you've got savings, but it's still only 5% a year, right? S&P 500, if you look at kind of long-term stats, depending on the time frame you look at, somewhere between 7 and 10% a year, if you put it in the stock market. These numbers are really high. And a lot of businesses focus on growing via inorganic growth. Go acquire businesses, right? If you run the numbers on that, they're not going to be anywhere near this, right? Now, that may be easier to buy revenue and scale, and operationally, this is more challenging, but there's a lot of upside, right? And that's the key to this model is most people don't know these numbers, and we wanted to walk you through it, give you a framework to kind of think about this. Okay, so that was, you know, kind of real world examples. But let's kind of keep on with kind of like the parting wisdom. The key is going to be that model, and you really just need to download it and play with it. Hopefully this makes sense. If you have questions, we're going to post this on our YouTube channel. You can go back and listen to it to make sure you understand some of these inputs. I'm hearing from folks that they were able to download it, which is good. So the key is the talent funnel is a continuous loop. This isn't a one-time thing, right? Because one of those big assumptions was the lifetime value in an agent, right? Well, that means you can't just hire them, right? That means you have to help them be successful. You need to not just find them, but you need to successfully onboard them, because that's going to have a huge impact on retention. And then, you know, you've got to coach them and keep them engaged on the retention side to really get that true lifetime value out of those agents, right? So all a continuous loop that you need to focus on. So, you know, the key though is reaching your goals are achievable if you kind of know the right framework and the strategy around it, right? There's some kind of key inputs here. But if you're not going to get your head against the walls of broker and are saying like, I don't know how to scale the business, maybe it's because there's not enough hours in the day because you're trying to do everything else. And you don't truly value your time as a business owner, right? Or you're focused on the sales side. You know, the key here is run the numbers, right? It may take some investment to put the capabilities in place to drive that recruiting engine, but there's a huge upside, and there's probably a higher upside than about anything else you could do in life, within your business or with your own personal funds, okay? And then the key is, right, to drive this, I mean, if you look at this model, it assumes building scale, right? And these are numbers that aren't going to work for everybody on average. If you're just getting started, if you have like 10 agents, right, and you don't have any kind of support personnel, you're not going to get the same results as someone who's scaled up to 50, 100 agents plus that has, you know, staff in place that's specialized by role, process and tools in place. You know, it comes down to PPT, people, process, tools, like any capability, right? They're the core process in your business recruiting. The key of this webinar is it's important, very high ROI. To hit the numbers we just talked about, you need to build the capabilities to deliver on that, right? This is going to help you set the goals. You're going to have to measure the goals, right? And you need the PPT to manage that. People, process, tools, you know, we're a little biased here at Brokerkit. We have a system put in place to help you do all these things. And we've built a system around this to really drive the scale around these numbers, you know, and especially in terms of the activity you need to drive to achieve those results. We believe, you know, firmly that you're going to need kind of to leverage some technology to drive that scale and truly get that ROI. And so what that means is you need a funnel, right? And here's all the things that, you know, we help our customers do, but whether you use our system or another one, these are things you need to do, right? And if you look at it, this is going to look a lot like your sales funnel. You need to capture leads. You need to kind of manage those contacts. There's got to be kind of an outreach component. You need to leverage kind of, campaigns and messaging and automation. And then you're going to have to kind of onboard them and retain them. But the same thing applies on the sales side, right? Because on the sales side, it's not about just the sale. It's about having a successful client, right? Because if you have a sale, they're not happy. You just lost that sale 7 years down the line, into the future, but also all the word of mouth, right? It's all about how many successful customers I can have on the sale, buying, with buyers and sellers on the sales side, and how many successful agents I can have on the retention side, because it is that true life cycle, and you need the true lifetime value out of them. So with that, that's kind of our presentation for today. Hopefully everybody was able to download this. Again, we have a technology platform in place here at Brokerkit to help you automate these processes. We've designed a system for the ground up. We believe we're unique in the system that's been designed to help, managing brokers, broker owners, team leaders, and leadership in large brokerages to scale up that talent funnel, putting, the tools in place, methodology, and then scorecards to help you kind of measure. We've got scorecards that are designed to measure all, the results that we talked about.